Okay, so welcome back to Think Differently. Today's topic is about making good investment decisions for next year, business investment decisions and hiring decisions. I think it's called how to actually get an ROI on your next hire or business, did I just say decision? Business investment next year. So lots of business investments, lots of things could constitute a business investment. Mostly what we're talking about today has to do with people. So if you're looking to hire someone to support you in your business, that's mostly what I'm talking about today, just to give you heads up. And I think there are lots of other things that we could talk about related to investments and investing in your business, right? Like even the computer that you buy is an investment in your business. So just in terms of like setting the scope for today. And then there will be there's a little bit of hiring that we're going to talk about today, but if you're interested in me diving deep into hiring processes and ways to think about like how to, if you're hiring a VA or an OBM, for example, if you're hiring a coach, those are different thought processes and different processes in general. So I'm not going to go too far into that today, although we will touch on that. So if that's a topic that you'd like to learn more about, I'm happy to talk about it in a future Think Differently. Okay. So first off, if you're live, hi and welcome. Thanks for being with me. I need to just fix my view here. I would love to know, sometimes people sign up just to be here and sometimes people sign up specifically for a topic. So if you have a specific topic already, a specific question or area within making a good business investment for next year or even for this year that you want to ask me, please go ahead, burning questions, drop them in the chat. Because you're here live, I could talk about this we're going to do this for like 45 plus minutes. Like I could do this times 3, times 4. I got a lot to say. So because you're live, you have the opportunity to sort of channel what direction we go in. So if you have specific questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat or just areas that you want me to try to cover. And then of course, let me know what insights are resonating with you as we go, what's not, what questions you have as we go. Please feel free to use the chat as much as you want. There was something else I wanted to say about that. Yeah, and if you have a specific type of person you're looking to hire, I can use that. I have a bunch of examples, but I'm happy to use your example as an example if that's helpful. Because I think that, I know what I was going to say. The other piece of that is anytime you ask a question, I always just assume that if you're asking a question, somebody else in my audience, somebody else who will be watching the replay, somebody else who's here live with us will also want the answer to that question. So you're probably also just paying it forward if that's helpful. To get you to ask the question and to be visible in that way. Also, just a quick note, we are hours away from a tropical storm, so if you see a lot of like people walking up and down the thing or my hammock might be blowing in don't worry, we're okay. We're just preparing for the storm tonight. Okay. I know, I do have one more. I have too many announcements today. One more announcement, which is for every person that joins live for these events this month, I did the same thing last month. Every time you join live, you get entered to win a free mini coaching session. Usually those are a one per person forever. Can't say words today. I've been speaking too much this week. Usually these are 1 per person, but I'm waiving that because I really want to not draw names out of a hat and then say, oh, forget it, not this person, right? So if you have had a free session with me before, you are still entered to win. So the only thing you need to do is show up live and put something in the chat, like just say hi. That's just the way that I'll track it because I'm not like taking names and stuff down right now. So just say hi or say something, drop an emoji, something in the chat, and you'll be entered to win a free session. Okay, now I'm going to jump in. All right, so a couple of things just about investing in your business, which by the way, I chose that word intentionally. It is an investment when you hire anyone and everyone to support your business. And that requires one of my favorite words, strategic thinking. It requires intentionality. It requires a level of risk tolerance, right? Like we just get to decide what we feel comfortable spending money on, or what we are just going to invest in, right? Money needs to be a part of this conversation, and it will be. But I'm also sharing it because the reason this topic came up is because I have just noticed, particularly this year, I think, getting burned by making an investment in the wrong person or the wrong service, or hiring someone who does not deliver on their promises. This is just, it's always going to be this way. In terms of, this is just a thing that happens in business. And so I just really, really, really want to normalize that from my 7 years working with small businesses and then 18 years working in huge businesses. This is always a thing that people are trying to avoid making a bad decision, leaning towards making a good decision. Sometimes they make the decision just on price. Sometimes they make the decision on, referrals. Like, there's all kinds of pieces that go into these decisions. And that's what I really want to dive into so that you can have some clear thinking around it. But I just first want to normalize, like, we cannot avoid making investments that aren't the best investment. And so all we can do here is just focus on what we can control. And what we can do is think this through with a clear head, do our very best, and adjust as we need to as we go. And so I just want to say, like, to start off the bat, like, if you're like, oh crap, I've made some really bad decisions, how do I just avoid that? It's more about, how do I just get better at making good decisions? How do I just get better at making business decisions and making better business investments, as opposed to, asking yourself to be perfect. That's not a thing. The other thing I want to share, and we're not just talking about coaches, but I think the coaching industry has definitely, I could talk about this all day and I'm not going to. The coaching industry has had a reckoning in the last few years where people who either lack integrity or are really good at marketing and not necessarily good at coaching, or frankly, coaching has also become there are lots of coaches out there that are coaches and then lots of coaches that are teachers. And I think that has gotten really confusing in the last few years in particular. Coaching is not going away. I love it so much. I'm so happy and proud to be a part of the coaching industry. And just like any industry, there's good stuff and bad stuff going on. And we are a relatively new type of service out there, really, still. And so it comes with the territory. And so I want to just really normalize that as well. And we won't be talking specifically about coaches only. We're going to be talking about whoever you need to hire. But that's the other sort of impetus for me to come today to talk to you about this, because I just feel, as a coach, as somebody who's been in the business long, and I think I've been in here long enough to have an opinion on that's sort of hopefully holistic and fair across the breadth of the industry. But I also just really want to normalize, like, that's just what's happening, and it's not perfect, and we also can just keep making better decisions. So here for those things as well. Okay, I'm going to check the chat. Is the tech okay for those of you who are live? Like, the video and the audio is working okay? All right, let me know, because we are stormy. Let me know if it gets wonky and I can make some changes. Okay, let me check the chat. A process of selection. Okay, happy to be here with you all. Always appreciate Laura's insights on how small business owners like me can overcome challenges. Okay, love it. I have a possible intern who's fallen into my lap. Ooh, kind of love that. She's getting an arts administration master's and will credit for working with my management business and additional projects 2025. I don't have to pay her, but I have to have 135 hours of work over a certain amount of time. Okay, and the time investment is what I'm looking into. Yeah. I've had interns in the past and assistants in the past, and has been more work for me from a time perspective, which is what keeps weighing on me. I think that's a really, really, really important. And while not everyone is going to have the opportunity of a free intern, I think the concept of hiring someone to help you in your business in order to take things off your plate and to create white space always is going to require energy and time, more energy and time on the front end. So it is an investment in your time to then create more time, in theory, even with the perfect candidate. And I just want to say that right up front. And I think this is why, so you're already inspiring me. I will do a more detailed how to get the best. Okay, so you brought this person on, right? I think I can do another one around, okay, so now you have this person, or now you've decided to hire this person. A lot of today is how do you make the decision to hire and who do you need to hire? And then it's okay, great. Now that you know what your business needs and you need to hire, how do we go through that process? And how do we onboard people effectively so that you get the best bang for your buck, as you're saying. And so I will cover pieces of that now and pieces of that later. But again, I think that's a really important thing to just say up front when you're hiring someone who is doing work for you, not with you, or we could argue with you, right? But they even if they have 47 years of experience and they've done this for everybody that looks just like you in the industry, they have to get to know you, they have to get to know your style, and they have to get to know your business. And so they have to be onboarded. And giving yourself and them that expectation, I think, is step one. So I hope that's at least helpful to start. But that's a really, really good one. And also to remember that even hiring someone in a delegation way, it does take time and energy up front. And if you don't have it, then I'm always a big fan. I'm just going to skip ahead to a quick tip. I'm always a big fan on baby steps and slow, not here's 47 things, go, of literally one thing at a time. That serves them in getting onboarded. It also serves you because you probably don't have the time to show them all the things and then backtrack for the things they didn't get to catch, right? We all have learning curves. And sometimes it's just about delegating, getting one thing off your plate, frees you up to then spend the time to talk to them about the next thing that then frees you up to onboard them on the next thing. So I'm very big on baby steps, slow roll onboarding. Okay, so a couple of things just right off the bat in terms of hiring people. I like to think about people in one of three different categories. A lot of people, coaches for an example, are going to cover multiple places, but just thinking about it from this perspective sometimes can really help you start to go what's now and what's later. So I just want to share this right off the bat. So first off, you might want to hire somebody who is an expert, who has at least in part a skill set that you don't have, right? So that's one type of investment that you might want to bring into your business next year. Really simple, easy examples are accountants and lawyers, right? We tend to know when we don't have those skills. Yep, can't do that shit. That's beyond my pay grade. Okay, great. And a lot of times those people can be hired on an advisory type standpoint. But so experts are great examples, especially if the problem that you're trying to solve is something that is not in your area of expertise, right? And then some experts, let me see if I made a bunch of lists. A couple other examples, if you decide that what your problem is in your business is marketing, then you could hire a marketing expert that's sort of general. You could hire a LinkedIn expert. I know a email expert. There are experts at all levels, right? Broad experts, business coaches are experts, more generally speaking, more broad. And then there's specific focal points. In terms of experts, there's VAs, there's coaches, there's OBMs. So that's one kind of category. And again, some people are going to fit in different categories. Another category that I really like to think about is an extra set of hands. And so an extra set of hands could be this intern. It could be if I decided that I wanted to expand my coaching business, but I always wanted to continue serving people one-on-one. At some point, one option that a one-on-one coach has is to hire on other coaches, right? So in that sense, yeah, I'm looking for an expert, but I'm just looking for somebody who's kind of like a me, right? I'm looking for another coach to provide a similar kind of service. I need an extra set of hands. I need more service delivery people to serve my clients, right? So that could be an extra set of hands might look like that. An extra set of hands might look like hiring a VA or an OBM to do stuff that maybe you have been doing in the past, but that will free you up then to serve more clients. And so some of that back end stuff gets handed off to someone else. So that could also be a delegation piece. And then again, I would say, I said earlier in the expert category, like sometimes a VA or a OBM, for example, they know more than you do. And what you need to do is go, here's how I do it now, and let's get that onboarded, and then can you make it better, please, right? And so that's where like an OBM, for example, is a great, and a VA is a great example of somebody who is both an extra set of hands and an expert in terms of they have a skill set that you don't have, or they have knowledge about something that's deeper than yours, for example. Questions about that? Does that make sense? Okay. And then support. The other example that I just gave is support, right? So you might realize that actually like business is fine and you don't need to hire anyone to like dive into the business details themselves, but maybe you're going through a lot right now and you need a therapist or a coach, right? So support is the third category that I like to think about. Again, people will fit multiple categories, but just in terms of helping you think through what would be a good investment for you next year. I don't know about you, but I usually think like well in advance. Like I've been wanting to do a podcast for like 2 or 3 years now, and I already know like the podcast hosts that I want to work with, the people that are going to help me with the back end, right? I've already talked to them. I already know, but deciding when to do that is a very important, strategic, intentional decision, and I've been wanting to do it for years, and I'm not procrastinating, or it's actually just me making a good decision. My business just needs other things from me right now, and it just is never, it has not yet reached a priority level, right? So just thinking about things from that perspective. Okay. I want to share a couple other thoughts about just the climate so that we're level setting, and then I'm going to get really into, I have 5 tips on how to help you make these decisions, and it kind of goes in order. Let me just check the chat. I would love to find someone to help me write government project proposals. I actually might know someone. It takes too much of my time, and sometimes I get stuck because I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job. That's it. Yeah, that's a great expert to find. Where are those people hiding? Yeah, I know. I have a friend who does grant writing. I don't know if she does for government work, but reach out to me after. Let me know, and I'll put you in touch, or I'll at least ask her. But yes, that's a great example, right, of like something that like you're probably doing it yourself and spinning your wheels and recognizing like this is just actually like. Would be really great if somebody could do it on my behalf and actually help me get the business out of it, right? That would be a very good return on investment, in theory, if we got the right person. Okay, so a couple of other things. If you've been burned before, if you've made bad investment decisions, or just somebody else didn't follow through, like it could be on you, it could be on them. We're not going to point fingers here. We're just gonna today only, as I said earlier, like we're just gonna talk about the stuff that we can control. But I think so often, and what all 5 of my tips today are about, so often it's just the wrong fit or the wrong timing or the wrong person. And so I just really want to encourage you to like, yes, that person probably had some level of responsibility. Yes, you definitely did have some level of responsibility, right? Like we all can take responsibility for our piece, and we can just move on and learn that lesson and move forward. But that fit, in terms of the question I'm always asking clients at one level or another, is like, is this what's right for you? Is it what's right for your business? And is it what's right for you and your business right now, right? Podcast, great example. That's a brilliant strategy. That would absolutely work for me. I love long form content, right? Like that would make so much sense for me. I've already done some mini podcasts. This could be a podcast episode, right? It's just such a great example of like, sure, yeah, why not? But when I sit down and look at my strategy, I just get such a bigger bang, faster bang now out of other strategies like this one than I would starting over on a podcast platform. And it doesn't mean that I won't do it, but the investment, that upfront investment is no joke, right? The time, money, energy, team that I would need to invest in that. And And so it's just not a right fit for me, for my business, right? It's a fit for me and it's a fit for my business, but it's not a fit for us right now. And that's the key. And I could hire somebody and put out a podcast that might be successful or might not. And they may or may not, like, I might not walk away a happy customer because it wasn't the right decision for my business now. And that person could have done all their good magic, right? So is it you, your business, and right now? And depending on the choice, your clients, right? Especially if you're looking to bring somebody on to serve your clients, is it the right thing for your clients right now as well? And then the final thing I want to say in just terms of setting the scene here is because people have been burned, because the industries, all industries and right now are saturated because there's a lot of people running virtual businesses especially. People are becoming, it is a buyer's market right now, right? It's a buyer's market. It'll flip and become a seller's market one day. But because it's a buyer's market, because people are being more discerning, discernment is like the number one thing I hope you can gain from today. Because of that, one, we as service providers need to be aware of that when we're looking at a person across the Zoom screen from us or across the phone or across the coffee table from us, looking to maybe make an investment in what we have to offer. We've got to remember that that's the water people are swimming in right now and give them that space to not pressurize those decisions, to not be worried when they ask, like, can you really do that? Somebody asked me a few months ago, like, that they had never hired a business coach, they'd never hired a coach, and they said, that's a lot of money. Is it worth it? Right? Like, and to just let that be a normal question that I'm responsible for asking if somebody wants to invest that much money to work with me. And so I just want to also share that as service providers. I'm going to be talking to you today as hiring people, but also there's some nuggets in here that you could also go back and think through from a service provider perspective, or even in your sales process. What might you be able to do to support your potential clients in making that decision, because they've probably been burned before, and just thinking about it from that perspective will serve you and will serve them. Okay, so number one, the first thing that I like to think about when I'm looking at making an investment in my business is, what is the actual problem I'm trying to solve or opportunity I'm trying to leverage? What's the actual problem? Another way to ask that question is, am I trying to solve what's the symptom and what's the source, right? Just like using your body as an example, right? Like, I used to have chronic back pain, and yes, I had some back stuff, but I always like to use this example. I went to a body worker, and she spent like the whole first session working on my calves. And I was like, hey, that's great and all, but like my back hurts, right? And she just knew what I didn't know, and I asked questions and I learned more about my body, which is my foundation was off. She watched me walk around and she saw that the way as tight as my calves were, it was just keeping my back in its problem. And so she wanted to work on my calves first before she moved into working on my back, right? And so as that example, right, maybe this is a bad example because I did have some back issues, but like my symptom was in my back. My calves felt great. But that was the first step that I needed. And I needed that expert person to tell me to understand the problem better than I did. And so if you're not sure what your problem is, what the source, I should say, if you're not sure what the source of your problem is, then that might be the first place, to go think that through on your own, or to hire someone to help you figure out the source. Right? This is sometimes what I help my clients do. I have done intensive programs, like a 2-week intensive coaching program to help people go, I don't even know like what it is that I need. Let's just do a business audit, look at what's happening, and kind of figure out what the actual problems are and what the symptoms are, and then where to go from here. And then that starts to be very clear of like, oh, I'm at capacity. I probably need a VA. Or, my marketing is the real problem here. That's where I need to focus my time, right? And a VA is probably not going to be the best choice from that perspective. And so sometimes this is the most high level, most strategic thing that you can learn in your business, and sometimes it's not easy. And so I just want to normalize that. But if we're going out to solve a problem with a person, let's make sure we're solving the source of the problem and not the symptom. Okay, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But again, I think it's the kind of, because when we get excited or when we get overwhelmed, right, there's reasons that we need to hire people, right? I want to make more money. I'm at capacity. I'm overwhelmed. I need somebody to come in and help me freaking do all this, right? Like there's usually some level of, because most of the time we are not going to make a change in our business until it's bad enough, right? Like so many times I love it when my clients are hiring people more proactively and bringing things in that they need, to really like double down on something that's working. But oftentimes we are really just going to do that from the space of solving problems. And so I just want to really normalize that and say that when you're in that space of like, oh my God, the first thing you need to do to get discernment is to get a clear head and to look at the actual problem and to really do an audit on your business around what is you might know first what the symptom is, fine, but really getting deep into what's the problem is always ever going to serve you. And that alone, that awareness will help you make all of your 2025 strategic plans, including your hiring and your investments. Okay. So once you've identified that you have a source, you know what the problem is, then you can start to look at, okay, so what's the kind of service that I need here? If I'm looking to have a service, if I'm looking to hire somebody whose service solves my symptom, I want to make sure that they also know how to solve the source of the problem, right? And I want to use those words. I want to be like, here's what I'm feeling, right? I have back pain. Here's what I'm feeling. My pipeline has dried up. But what I know about my marketing is this works and this hasn't. So can you help me, right? Or whatever the thing is underneath. Using those words then, and also service providers are using those words in their marketing so that you can then know, oh, this person helps with that problem. That's actually not my problem, right? Maybe you're not on LinkedIn, right? Like you don't have a LinkedIn problem. You want to hire somebody who helps you with your strategic marketing, as an example. I had an example. Let me know if this is making sense or if you have questions. Yeah, so one of the things that I like that happens I'll use myself as an example. I would say maybe 40% of my clients are going through some sort of a pivot or change in their business. And a lot of times what will happen is when we're making a change in our business, my favorite example is, let's say you're a web designer who also writes copy for your websites. And then let's say for your clients' websites. And then let's say you've been there and done that and you're like, actually, I am a web designer. I'm a designer. I was just writing copy because I thought that would make people hire me faster, and I got tired of that. And I don't really want to do that anymore, or I only want to do it for a small number of clients. So I'm going to start taking that off of my services, and I'm going to, dial back into my web design offers and tweak those and adjust them to just be very focused on web design, as an example, right? So let's say, this is a really bad example. Let's say that you're doing that, and then you go out. This is a bad example. I didn't think that one through. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to use it anyway. We're just going to go with it. Okay, so let's say, I'm using the wrong example for the wrong example. But let's say that you do this, right? And then you go and you're working with me and I'm your coach. But before you hired me, you went out to get a copywriter to support you because you just didn't want to write copy anymore, right? That might have helped you decide that that's not what you wanted to do. but it's not the direction that you want to take your business in. This is such a bad example. I'm going to come up with a better one. Yeah, okay, here's one. So I have a client who came to me through a referral from a copywriter. I'm just going to keep using my copywriter examples. From a copywriter, because she went to this copywriter, did not realize she was going through a pivot. Thought that her problem was that her marketing was bad. Because every time she put something out, she was like, that just doesn't feel right. Right? And so the problem, the symptom was, I'm not connected to my marketing, so that makes it harder to sell. And I don't think I'm not connecting with my audience. So I have a copy problem. I have a marketing problem, right? And sometimes the only way we know this is to hire the wrong person and to dive into it. So again, we're not gonna get mad at it. So she hired a copywriter who I know. And as the copywriter started to work with her, there started to be this friction between both of them, because what the copywriter realized before she did was that she was going through a pivot. And actually, they were just coming up with copy that didn't make her feel good because she needed to shift her business to a different service. And so the best copy that this brilliant copywriter, who I have hired to help me as well last year, like, she's fantastic copywriter, but all the best copy in the world could not solve this person's problem, right? And so she referred her to me, and we've hot potatoed, and she's worked with me through her pivot, and now she's going back to the copywriter to help her write the new, that she feels clear and good about, this new piece, this new service, right? We're solving the right problem, and we're getting the right service that solves our problem. And thank goodness for this copywriter, because the two of them could have been very frustrated with one another, right? Because they were not solving the right problem. They were not the right fit, but neither of them knew that until they got into it. So as service providers, we also have that obligation to say, like, I don't think I'm the right person to help you. And that's not easy. I've done that as well. But it's always and ever going to be the right thing. Okay, so are we solving the source of the symptom? Is this person, like, what then is the service that you need? I need a copywriter. I need a coach. I need a web designer. I'm looking for a VA or an OBM. What's the service that solves that problem? And then within that, so once you've decided the kind of service that you need, within that, next level down, what kind of expertise do you need them to have, right? So this example that you gave us of this intern, right? Let me let this person in. You are not receiving somebody who has a ton of experience and who's going to come in and be like, I gotcha, let's go, right? You are looking at receiving somebody who is going to need training in order to help take things off your plate. I'm making some assumptions there. Is that fair? Okay. Right? So with that example, that's a brand new to work person. New grown-up, right? Like, very, very, very different than the opposite, which would be maybe you need somebody who can just come in and help you run your business because you've been piecemealing it forever. One of the first hires I see a lot of my clients hire is either an OBM or a VA. So I'm just going to use that as an example, right? So you've been running this business, you're on your own, you've piecemealed everything, you've figured it all out, but you are not a systems person. Maybe you are not a detailed person. Even if you have like awesome SOPs, what you really need to do is to be able to hand this off to someone with a proper onboarding process. And so what you might be looking for is not to have to really train someone. Yes, you still need to train them on your business and your service and you and your style, and there's still some onboarding, again, to do. But what you might be then looking, if you're looking for the opposite, you're looking for somebody who can kind of advise you and take off your plate and make better and say, I know how to do this. And all your job then is going to be to say, like, hi, here's my mess. Can you take this masterclass that I'm running? In my example, I'm running a masterclass in January. My VA is figuring out how we're going to do that in the back end. And I'm just giving her my parameters of, like, here's how I know I want it to go and what I know about it. Can you just make that happen in the background on my website and in my email and all that stuff, right? So level of experience, I've hired VAs and OBMs who had the experience, and I've hired VAs and OBMs who I had to train. There's no wrong answer, but you just get to decide where you want to go, right? You can invest less money generally if somebody is less experienced. So there's definite trade-offs, but just knowing what you have the capacity and the willingness to do. Also within this number 3 level of experience, like kind of expertise you're looking for, is like what level of attention are you looking for? And I invite you to get really, really selfish about this. VAs as a great example, are you looking for somebody you can just be like, I don't want to have a lot of talking. I just want to give you, again, after proper onboarding, I want to be able to get to a point where I'm giving you stuff and you can just take and run it. Or do you want your hands in it enough? Do you have really strong opinions about what your communications look like, about how certain things go down? You need to communicate those things to your VA, to your OBM. That takes time, that takes meetings. Are you okay to, are you a kind of, for me, I'm an external processor, so I want to be able to talk it out. I am very clear, what I need to delegate and I don't need to know about it, but certain things when I'm still thinking them through, I want to sit down with my VA and go, what could we do? How could this look? What do you think? I want to talk it through. I want some attention. Is my example there. And that gets down to your style and the way that you will best feel supported. And being able to articulate that to someone is gold. Because most service providers know how they like to work, and they will know, Laura, I cannot do any more meetings, thank you. I don't want to talk. Can you send me an email? Right? And I also have a neck injury, so sometimes it physically is not possible. I need to send a voice note to somebody because I don't have the capacity in my neck, right? So those are things that we have to talk through, but we'll always and ever frustrate anyone if we're misaligned there. So another attention piece, level of attention for a service provider, like somebody who's coming in and doing something for you. But I also think level of attention, I've received one-on-one coaching and I've received group coaching since I've been in business. And you do not get as much attention in group coaching. And you got to know that up front. There's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of times group coaching the way I operated is earlier on in my business, I was a member of a group coaching program, and that helped me get some traction. And then when I had the money to pay for a one-on-one coach, I brought on my one-on-one coach that I've been working with for a while now. So all choices are right, but the trade-off to that group coaching program that I brought on, that I hired, that did not have any one-on-one additional, that was the trade-off. And I was like, but I have more questions, right? But wait, that was my trade-off. Knowing what amount of attention you want is really, really important. And then the final piece under this, what kind of expertise are you looking for? What kind of person are you looking for? Can you guys hear me? The rain is really loud. It's okay? Okay. Is the fit of the right person. So we're still just talking about, do I need a group coaching program? Do I need a one-on-one coach? Do I need, a VA or an OBM? Do I want an experienced VA or a new VA, right? Do I want to train someone, or do I want to have somebody just take it, right? We're still talking generic terms in terms of the kinds of service provider. But the next level down is do you have the right butt in the right seat? And so one thing I want to share from my corporate days, I used to, I was in change management consulting. I was never part of HR legally, but my partners were a lot of HR people. So we implemented processes that affected employees of really, really big global companies. And for a little while, I spent some time being the person that draws the org charts and decides what skills need to be in this organization, in this department, and then how should the boxes be drawn? The little org chart, the tree of who reports to each other, and what is each of those jobs? What are the boxes, and what are the skill sets in those boxes? My favorite example from those days is Work Design 101 is you do not draw a box around a specific human being. You draw a box for the organization and for what the organization needs. We are going to have an inexperienced VA here, and we are going to have an experienced OBM here, right? Those examples were like, first off, you draw it. People are over here, you la, 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 la. I'm not looking at the actual humans, right? You get clear on what you need. Then you start saying, what's the right fit? Is this, we need somebody like this, and then you can think outside the box, right? But like, we need somebody like this, what is the right, is this person going to fit this box? And that clarity for you as a business owner oftentimes is the difference between the right hire and the wrong hire. Okay, let me answer these questions. That was 1, 2, and 3. So 1 was solving the source, not the symptom. 2 is what is the right service that you're looking for and to solve that symptom, to solve that problem, the source. And then the kind of expertise that you're looking for within that. So what kind of coach, what kind of OBM, what kind of VA, what kind of web designer. And then we'll do 4 and 5. How am I doing on time? Oh yeah, I'm about done. Okay. Stupid question. There are no stupid questions. OBM, I'm so sorry. An OBM is an online business manager or director of operations. Generally, like in a lot of, usually they are either very operational focused, like systems, processes. My OBM used to write like standard operating procedures for me because I had a slew of VAs with all different experience, all different focal points, and so she would sort of like corral how does the work get done. Project management is a big piece of that. Understanding the systems and just knowing like these things go here, this person needs to do that, right? They're sort of like managing all of the like stuff happening for my small business owners. And then the larger small business owners, at least in terms of the people I've worked with, they generally have a director of operations. And that person is usually less involved with the people and much more involved with the tactical, practical project management, making sure that the client gets the thing that they needed and this person's talking to that person. Does that help? Okay. And a lot of times VAs will promote themselves into an OBM role, right? So especially if they've been a VA for a while, a lot of times they will realize they have the skills. It's sort of like a higher level, more expensive and more impactful. Oh good. Sorry. I'm just OBMing everywhere. Okay, good. Regarding hiring a VA, I hired one who was really nice and trustworthy, but I had to check and redo a lot. I hung on to her for way too long. You're not the only one. Was hoping she would catch on to my style, but she didn't. Yeah, and I think sometimes you don't even know your style until you hire the first one. I don't know many people who are still with their first VA, and that's not the first VA's fault. It might be, right? But like, it's a lot of times just fit and learning how to work together and realizing sometimes you don't know what you need until you get into it. And again, I think that like some of those decisions have been some of the best business decisions I've made to bring somebody on and or to let somebody go. And I also think, I think I even put this in the email, I think very, very common, happens all the time, is hiring, you want to connect with someone, right? Like, and this is not something that I think that you did wrong, but like, we do want to connect with someone, right? Which is number 4. Skipping ahead. We do want to connect with someone, but sometimes that wins out over doing some of that's why this connection piece is 4th and not 1st, because I might love you dearly, but if I don't need your services, I should not hire you, right? And one of us should figure that out along the way in the sales process or in the beginning of us working together, and that just happens. It just happens. And trustworthy is huge. I would much rather have somebody who didn't quite cut it that was trustworthy than somebody who did a great job but I couldn't trust, or who went against what I asked them to do, or you couldn't trust them with your client, to send messages to your clients that weren't rude, that right? So there's trade-offs there, and I think you made a good decision there. And now you know more about what your style is, so you could communicate that to someone next time. We could talk about this in another one, but there's also like some things, ways that we can communicate or ask questions of people. You know, it's not just, are they right or are they wrong? It's like, hey, this isn't quite working for me. This is what would feel really supportive to me. Is that something you can do? Could we try some things, right? You know, you could have those conversations. I'm happy to talk about that another time. I've had that happen as well. There you go. I said you're not the only one, including hanging on too long, 100%. I have to. I have hung on too long. I hung on too long in corporate with people that we hired, and I also hung on too long in this business. Hoping that it would be different. I've embraced hire slowly, fire quickly. Yeah. And I think that onboarding process, baby step onboarding process, is that middle step too, right? Like that's the slow ramp up will give you that perspective. And doing trial runs and paid projects, I think are really real. I'm jumping into like a whole nother day's topic, but I think those things are really, really helpful. Okay, so number 4 and number 5, which a lot of times people jump to, is number 4 is, do you have a values alignment and a style alignment? And those are two separate things, right? Somebody can have a values alignment with me, but their work style is completely different. I will share my very first VA. We had a major values alignment, and actually we had a style alignment that became our downfall because she worked the same way I did. And what I needed was my complement. I needed my opposite. I needed somebody more detail-oriented than me. I needed somebody whose head was not up here being strategic. She was a great thought partner, and she came up with lots of other things. She served me in so many ways. We worked together for a year, and it was so helpful. But in the end, it was not what I initially hired her for and wasn't what I needed. It took me a long time to learn it, and we learned it together. And it was not easy, and it was not clean, and we ended on a good note, but we loved each other so much, and she was basically me. And I needed a not me. I needed somebody to like keep me organized. And that was not her. And we both had to just acknowledge that. So values alignment and style alignment is really, really important. And being able to articulate that in the hiring process, also really important. Really important. Ask some questions to this trustworthiness piece. Ask some questions that will give you an opportunity to test out if you feel that you can trust them. That's also why we want to onboard people slowly, because sometimes people erode trust by accident, or like we start to feel like, oh, they can't do this, when really we just gave them too much at once. And so that is a big piece. But that style alignment, knowing what you need, right? If I'm going to hire a coach, I would like somebody who thinks a little bit like me and a little bit differently from me, right? But if I'm going to hire a VA or an operations person, right, I'm going to be looking for a different style. And thinking that through is really important. And then finally, money and prioritization. So let me back up. I should have said prioritization first. I might have given you some thoughts for like, oh my God, so now I want to hire like these 3 people next year. Awesome. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, one at a time. Please hire one at a time. It can just be, especially if you're the only business owner and they're going to be reporting to you. If you have an OBM, they might be able, an operations person, they might be able to, or an HR person, they might be able to handle that onboarding process with more than one person, but that's a lot. It's a lot. And again, back to the, what's this problem I'm trying to solve in my business? What's the opportunity I'm looking to leverage? What's the best first hire? And that first hire, in theory, should help you to create capacity so you can go serve more people so that you can make more money to pay for the next one. But then it'll also create, in theory, capacity for your time. And it depends on what you're doing, right? If I'm hiring a web designer or a copywriter and I'm getting involved in redoing my whole website, that's a lot of work on me. That's not like they're doing stuff for me, but I'm just adding a project to my plate, right? Versus a VA who is taking stuff off my plate. And so thinking about those things in terms of the order and the prioritization is really, really important. So if you've gotten this far and you're like, okay, I know I want these 3 people, great. Now go back and revisit who comes first. And then finally, a couple thoughts on pricing and investing dollars. Let me check the chat and then I'll talk about the money. Agree to hire someone trustworthy? Yes. Okay. So I left this last because, as I said, I think a lot of times we make decisions of like, oh, I'm looking for a business coach. I'll just hire the cheapest one. That's what I did, and that's how I got a group program when I really just needed a one-on-one coach, as an example. The best, that like your free intern, right, is not free. Will cost time, right? And so thinking those things through, looking at your time, looking at your bill rate, I really love to think about this. Like, even if you don't bill your clients by the hour, do a little messy math and come up with like how much you pay yourself hourly, how many hours you put into your business and how much you get paid every month. And give yourself a bill rate and say, for example, if you're hiring somebody to take things off your plate, if their bill rate is less than yours and you can buy yourself time back within the first, let's say 2 or 3 months, that should give you, and they're the right person, that should give you a return on investment fairly quickly. And it could even be within a few weeks, right? Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. But thinking about this is an investment. There's nobody I know that really is hireable for free, and I wouldn't recommend that. So thinking about where, again, back to that prioritization conversation of like, you might not have the money to hire all 3 anyway, and so you're better off hiring the one that's going to generate the easiest way to get to the next one. And thinking about your investments that way, I think is really helpful. So a phased approach could be a piece that we talked about. And I think the other piece here, I could do a whole live on just this. And if you want me to say more about it, I'm happy to. So just let me know here in the chat or reply to the email that sent you this replay. But I think we all have a different level of risk tolerance. And I see so much bad advice online in people's content. And I just want to say, like, there are no rules when it comes to your risk tolerance and what you want to invest. Yes, it's an investment in your business. It's also an expense that adjusts for your taxes, and understanding how that, talking to your accountant, understanding how any, especially a bigger investment, how any investment will work for you is really important, because it's not just that you're paying out, it's that you are adjusting your taxes, and that could be a benefit. But I see a lot of bad advice out there, basically saying one extreme or the other, which is don't hire till you have the cash, or only hire, like, no, I'm saying it. Don't hire until you have all the cash to pay for it, or hire before you have the cash to pay for it, because you're never going to have the cash to pay for it if you don't hire, right? And those 2 pieces of advice are so extreme, and most people need to fall somewhere closer to whatever the middle is in between. And so I would never say that one of those is right or wrong at any point in time. I have done both of those, and I feel that they were the right choice for me at the time. And I have a relatively high risk tolerance. And so sometimes I've been more willing to invest the dollars to just fast track my business. But sometimes I invested the dollars and they weren't the right investment, right? But I've gotten better and better at investing. And so all of those things are fine, right? I've had plenty of people, just like I offer payment plans and pay in full, like many of you probably do, right? Some clients are going to want to be like, please just let me pay in full. I don't want to have to think about this again. And some people are like, I am going to pay as I go because I only have enough for that first payment or 2. Like, all of those are fine and right. It's just what works best for you. And if you're a business owner and how you set that up, it also needs to serve your business. And that's a whole different topic in terms of your payment plans. But your risk tolerance and your risk tolerance right now, right? Especially if you've been burned, please don't let that tell you that you cannot hire someone ever again and you have to like force yourself to do everything by yourself for the rest of time. But also on the other end, like, doing everything and hiring everything out is also going to wear you out financially and emotionally and energetically. Because then you're just you're outsourcing your power at some level, right? Like you're just asking everybody else to tell you what to do. And I want to be really, really clear. Like there are times and moments where we do want to be told what to do. And we want to hire the right expert to support us in that. But your job is to learn to be a better business owner over the years. And so hiring people that will help you to do that is always ever going to serve you. But that doesn't mean that you need to hire everybody, and it doesn't mean that you need to hire nobody, and it doesn't mean that you have to wait till you have the cash, and it doesn't mean that you have to hire them in order to make the cash. There's just what's right for you, back to the beginning. There's just what's right for you and your business right now. Period. The final thing I want to say is, because we're talking about investment, for my service providers, for my coaches, if I don't say this, I would be remiss. Investing in someone will take time to see a return on investment. And it requires, depending on who you're hiring, it requires some level of partnership. You have to give. You cannot outsource your problems, your business problems. And when I see people saying they didn't get a return on investment, sometimes what happened is they just went, here, can you do this? And there was not enough conversation and whatevering to give that person the opportunity to do what they needed to, or they hired a person to solve one piece, but you're the business owner, the buck still stops with you. And if you're asking someone to solve all your problems and then getting mad because it's not a good return on investment because they didn't make you money, that's my favorite one, right? They didn't make you money. Well, nobody can make you money. You have to make yourself money. Sorry, right? And like we want to like, as a business coach, I feel very strongly about this because I do not want to be responsible for other people making money, even though part of what I do is help people make money, but they're making the money, right? It's just, and I think that nuance, there are so many professionals out there that nuance is very sticky for when they're hiring and when they're receiving clients. And so reminder that an investment is an investment in dollars, in time, in that relationship, in that working together relationship. It takes time to learn how to work together. And so if you're feeling stressed, that's okay. And again, I said at the beginning, like a lot of times we don't hire until we have a real problem. And so just knowing that, though, and not putting the pressure on the person or the expectation or the relationship or even yourself to get that to work really quickly is actually what's going to make it work faster when you do hire them. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I have a client in 1 minute, and so I need to run, but I want to say thank you to those of you who joined live. If you're catching the replay, please hit reply to the email here and ask me any questions you have, make a request for future topics. And next week we are talking about, cloudy vision. If you're like, I don't even know what direction I want to take this business in, or you're struggling with a sub piece of your vision of like, I know where I'm going, but like, I don't know the next 90 days or the next 6 months. That's what we're going to be talking about if you don't know what you want. That's next week. Oh, as a former teacher, I get that pass the buck mentality 100%. The parents would hold me responsible for their child's poor performance. I feel you so much on that. It's really, really hard. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, friends. I'll see you next week. Have a great one.